If you've ever wondered what Avios actually is, how it works, and even if it's worth collecting, this video is for you. In this Avios for Beginners video, I'll explain what Avios are, which airlines you can use them on, what they're worth, and what a good redemption looks like versus a bad one, all as simply as possible. This is part one of my Avios series, and next time we'll look at how to earn Avios with certain credit cards. But for now, let's get the basics nailed. So the first thing we want to know, what exactly are Avios? Well, Avios, in a nutshell, is a travel rewards currency, kind of like air miles, used by a number of airlines, including British Airways, Iberia, Aer Lingus, and Qatar, just to name a few. And you can collect Avios when you fly with these airlines, spend on Avios earning credit cards, or shop through Avios earning partners and retailers. And once you've built up your balance, you can use Avios to pay for flights, pay for upgrades, or even book hotels and car hire. But here is the key thing, and the first important thing to know. Avios doesn't have a fixed cash value. The value changes depending on how you use them, and I'll show you what I mean by that shortly. If you collect Avios through British Airways and have a BA Club account, then you are part of the Oneworld Alliance. The Oneworld Alliance is, as the name suggests, a global airline alliance consisting of 15 member airlines which share flight routes and benefits, which means in the case of Avios, you can redeem those points on airlines like Qatar, Iberia, Finnair, American Airlines, Japan Airlines, and many more. In fact, Oman Air have recently joined Oneworld, and now Hawaiian Airlines have also just recently announced that they plan to join in early 2026. So even if you fly short haul in Europe, you can still collect and then use Avios for long haul trips on Oneworld partner airline. Let's say Qatar to the Maldives, for instance, or Iberia down to South America. And that flexibility is what makes Avios so powerful. It's not just about BA flights. Now, coming back to the value of Avios, one of the most commonly asked questions is indeed, what is an Avios point actually worth? Well, as I mentioned earlier, there's no official answer because it depends entirely how you redeem them. There is, however, a benchmark which collectors generally use as a rule of thumb. One Avios is roughly worth 1 pence, and this is the minimum value you should aim for when redeeming Avios for a flight. Now, BA specifically will release a number of Avios or rewards seats per flight, and these are as follows. They will release 4 business class seats, known as either Club Europe or Club World, 2 premium economy seats, known as World Traveller Plus, and this is specific to long haul routes, and 8 economy seats, known as World Traveller. And to get an idea of whether you are getting good value, there is a bit of math which we can apply. Flights I'm using here are purely to demonstrate how to calculate the value of Avios using a simple formula. There are other variables and nuances which can fall into redemptions, but that isn't for this video. So let me show you how that works. When you're looking to book a reward flight with Avios, you will need 3 things. The first thing you'll need is the cash cost of the flight you are looking to book. Secondly, the Avios redemption cost of the same flight. And the third thing you'll need is the taxes of the Avios redemption. It is worth mentioning at this point that even though you can redeem Avios for free flights, so to speak, you will still need to pay the associated taxes. And these vary depending on cabin class. So let's take a look at a couple of scenarios. Let's go ahead and get the information we need to determine a poor redemption versus a good one. And with this, let's try a long haul economy flight. And I'm going to use Heathrow to Dubai. You'll see that the cost of the return flight is £540.22. Now, once we've got that, we then need to find out how many Avios we will need for that same flight. And you can see in this case that comes in at 50,000 Avios, with the associated taxes being £100. So therefore we then take the £540.22, we then minus the £100 in taxes, and then we divide the 50,000, which gives us a value of 0.88 pence per Avios, which actually isn't too bad, but it is below the 1p benchmark. Now, let's look at a flight to New York in business class or Club World for June next year. Let's go the 8th of June outbound and the 13th inbound. You'll see here that the cost of the return flight is £2,511.12. The Avios required for that flight comes in at 170,000 plus £375 in taxes. Therefore, we take the £2,511.12 minus the £375 in taxes and then divide it by the 170,000, which gives us a value of 1.25 pence per Avios, which is more like it. If you can get 1.2 to 1.5 pence per Avios, that is considered pretty good value. If you really know what you're doing, however, and a complete pro at it, you can get more. Now, what you would have seen there is the economy flight delivered below the 1p benchmark that we're looking at, although it wasn't actually that poor value. But the business class flight delivered above the 1p value. So why is this? Well, in both classes, you will still need to pay the taxes, as we've said, on the reward flights. But in economy, these taxes actually make up a significantly bigger part of the cash ticket price. In premium cabins, not so much. And it's very rare, if at all, you will get good value for money on an economy ticket because of this. You really aren't saving that much money if you're booking an economy reward flight. And the investment, in all honesty, is suboptimal. And if we flip that, the reason you get good value in long haul business is because the Avios you need is only around 2 to 3 times that of what you need for an economy redemption. But the cash fare difference could be up to 10 times more than that. So therefore, the cash difference disproportionately outweighs the Avios required. Now, you can also use a combination of Avios and cash during the redemption booking process, and it is actually worth checking the different options within the table using the same maths as we have already, because some of those options deliver some great redemption values. The most Avios least cash option isn't always the best in terms of redemption value, but it will always be the first one that you are presented with. And I learnt this the hard way when I was redeeming a business class flight to Amman in Jordan a few years ago. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are other ways which you can redeem Avios for other things other than flights. And you can use them for things like purchasing wine, converting to hotel points, and even now purchasing Apple products, which sounds great. However, the value drops to around 0.4 pence per Avios or less. And that is not an area that we want to be in. And airlines will absolutely bet on and hope that most people redeem their Avios poorly, because most people do not realise this, but Avios isn't just a loyalty scheme, it is a massive revenue generator. And here's an example why. When people use Avios for a short haul economy flight, for instance, or part pay with Avios, the airline's real cost of fulfilling that redemption is very, very low. In reality, they don't lose an expensive seat. They just give you a cheap one that might not have sold anyway. And that means that you burn through your points quickly and they keep the profit margins high. Basically, the fewer pence per Avios you get, the better it is for them. Airlines care more about you feeling rewarded as an individual than about giving you maximum value. If you use 5,000 Avios for a short haul discount and you feel happy with it, that positive emotion keeps you loyal, even if it wasn't good value mathematically. After all, as human beings, we act on emotion before logic, and they know most people don't crunch the numbers. Well, I'll cover other redemption options in future videos, but if you are serious about travel, Keep your Avios for flights and upgrades. That is really where the magic happens. Now here's a few extra tips beginners should know. Avios do not expire as long as there's earning or spending activity on your account every 36 months. You can transfer Avios between airline loyalty programs, say British Airways to Iberia, British Airways to Finnair, British Airways to Qatar, to give you a few examples. And families can also create a B8 household account, so everyone's points go into one pot. I'll go into this later in the video series because this is where we as a family really benefit. And these are small things, but make managing and redeeming your points a hell of a lot easier. So that's the basics of Avios, what they are, how they work, and what's actually worth spending them on. If you found this video useful, please hit the like button and do consider subscribing to the channel, because in the next video, I'll show you exactly how to earn Avios quickly using credit cards, partner shopping, and a few easy everyday tricks. And do drop a comment below to let me know if you're going to start collecting Avios and what flight you are going to save them up for. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.